Hi all, Tech Teardown here. Today we are going to talk about Figma, and we are going to talk about Figma specifically for teachers. So let's get started. What is Figma? So Figma is what they describe as a all-in-one design platform. If you're used to Adobe Illustrator, it's a really great way to design features for the web, prototype, create design systems, and generally create anything that you're going to put on the internet. But it can be really great for the classroom too, because it's a first entry point for students to start to learn about design tools, how they work, and the things that you can do with them. So, diving right in, when you log into Figma, you are going to want to create a new design file. And once you create that new design file, you're going to drop into this view that you see right here on my screen. And this is the design file itself. So I've actually made this demo in the design file. What you'll get is a canvas that you can zoom out, zoom into, and it expands wherever you go as long as you're in this middle space, which is the canvas. This is the sort of work station that you're going to be operating in. On the left side, you'll see these assets. So if I were to click here on this image, you can see that it's highlighted it here. That's image number one. You could also give it a name if you wanted to be more descriptive. So you could call it Figma. Okay. So what can you do in Figma? Well, you can do a lot of different things. So for this example, you might imagine that you're working with students and you're asking them to think about an app that they might be making. So what we'll do is we can create these things called frames. And so the frame is a workspace that you can make in Figma. So for example, I've just created another frame. So you create those frames by clicking up here. And this gives you a box or some boundaries for which you could then design the page on the app. So let's play around with this first example. So I already have a mock-up here of maybe the home screen of an app. So they've created a button down here, enter if you dare. We have a logo, and maybe when we want to do a description below. So I can create a text box down below to say a fun app to explore your adventure. And there's a lot of features you can do here if we wanted to make that text bigger. In the design section, this is where you're really able to edit any of those items. So you could make the text bigger. Let's say you wanted to change the color. You can also do things like alignment. Really, the best way to learn is to play around with the different options here. And I'll go into some of the details of this design panel in another video. But there's a lot of neat things you can do, and your students will start to do as they explore the different options here over in the design panel on the right. And you can see that over on my layers panel, I now have this new layer, this text box. So if I wanted to click on it, I could easily find it. Now, students have a lot of fun making these little designs. What they can do is they can do things like draw shapes. So they might come in here, grab a rectangle. Maybe they want to create a hamburger menu. So you can see here, you can quickly make that hamburger menu, that little three-line menu. And, maybe they want to create the next page of the app. So after they see this screen, they could design the second page of that. And they have a lot of fun designing what that would look like and playing around in the system. What's really neat is then you can click on these frames so you can see everything has been highlighted here. And you can switch over to the prototype mode, and that will actually put it into a view that you can see. Now, what's really fun is that you can create some really advanced features using the prototypes. So if you wanted to actually create something that was dynamic or you're able to actually click on things, you can see here that they've used the prototype to create some linkages between things. And so this is neat because when we go into prototype, you can see here that you can actually click on items to make them expand. So this is a pretty neat way for students to start to see how those apps might look on the front end. And so you can make it so that they can play around with different items here. Now there's a lot of good demos on how to create these animations and these transitions. Students have a lot of fun exploring what these look like and learning from examples. So I always think it's helpful to see examples. And I think another great way to use Figma is maybe if you want to get them more familiar with the tool, you could use it for something like slides. And so there's a lot of good examples in the Figma community that you can always access at figma.com. And there'll be examples of what those slides actually look like. In this example, you can see that University of Washington actually creates their lecture slides in Figma. And so you can see examples of what those slides look like. And let's say you wanted to play around with this files. You could always hit duplicate up here, and you can have access to a duplicate version of that and see how they've created these nice slides. Let's say you wanted to do a presentation. You could have your students create these slides in their board. And a pretty neat way to do that is, again, using those frames. So if you click on frame, you can see that there's a presentation option, and they can put in a slide here. They would duplicate those slides, and then they have their presentation. So Figma, really neat tool to use. You can do all types of different things. You can even draw vector graphics and shapes. So if you use the pen tool up here, you can draw all types of different lines. If you're familiar with Illustrator, you can get really creative with what those look like and create all kinds of different shapes, all types of different images, and really neat way to get students exploring how to use the design side of Figma. In additional videos, we'll go over some of the other features, but for a teacher, this is really the best way to get your students into a design tool that's completely free, doesn't cost them anything, and they can start to learn about layers, shapes, vector images, and how these tools work. And these are the same tools that are used at many different companies in the tech industry when they're trying to do things like design websites or design apps. A lot of times, Figma is one of the first places that designers will go to mock things up and be building what you see on the web every single day. Well, if you like this video on the intro to Figma, we'll be covering other apps that are used in the tech industry and that you can start to use in your classroom. Please let me know if there's an app that you'd like to review or more features that I could go in detail on, and hit that subscribe button for more videos as they come out. Thanks again.